Hey guys, it's Madison Estes. Welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to be talking about horror trends and predictions for 2024. Now, I do a video like this every year, and in these videos I usually talk about horror trends that I noticed in the previous year or the previous few years, and trends that I predict are going to take off this year and in the years to come. The thing about these videos is that I'm not always right. This is just something that I do for fun, and there's no scientific process behind this. This is literally just me looking at all of the movies that I watched last year and all the books that I either read or saw on Book Talk that I saw were trending, and just trying to take a step back and look at it all and see if there's any trends. The first trend I want to talk about is demonic possession. Now, I don't think that a year goes by where we don't get at least one or two demonic possession movies. I think that it's a fairly common trope, kind of like haunted houses and ghost stories. But this trend was everywhere last year. Off the top of my head, Talk to Me was a demonic possession film. We also had The Exorcist Believer, Evil Dead Rise, Insidious 5, and The Pope's Exorcist. And also Grady Hendrix's very popular novel, How to Sell a Haunted House, also had a possession storyline. So I kept seeing this trope over and over again in 2023, and I definitely think that we're going to see it again this year. There's a new Insidious film coming out this year, so we're definitely going to see some demons, and we're most likely going to see possession in that film as well. And there's also The Conjuring and the new Omen film, so I definitely think that this trend is going to continue this year. The next trend I want to talk about is pregnancy and evil baby horror. So I'm kind of combining two different things, but I feel like most pregnancy horror is a result of, the baby either being evil or people thinking that the baby's going to be evil because of the questionable way it was conceived. There is some types of horror that just revolve around pregnancy and the horror of pregnancy, because pregnancy is pretty horrifying in real life, and it's definitely a good subject to explore in a horror story. But yeah, there's a lot of overlap with these two topics, and we saw a lot of it last year. One example of pregnancy horror is the Hulu film Clock, which I highly recommend, which is about an organization that tries to fix women that don't want to have children by helping them get more in tune with their natural urges, because apparently it is unnatural to not want to have children. I thought that it was a great film and a good example of pregnancy horror. And there were some other films that I didn't get around to seeing, like Deliver Us, which was clearly pregnancy horror. It's about a woman that's carrying twins, and it's believed that one of them is the new Messiah and one of them is the Antichrist, and there's a lot of people that want to see those kids dead. That's kind of combining both the pregnancy horror and the evil baby horror. There's also the new season of American Horror Story Delicate, which I'm not caught up on yet, but which I know heavily features a pregnancy storyline. This year we're definitely going to be getting more of the same, because the new Omen's coming out, which is a prequel to the original Omen, and it's going to be exploring Damien's backstory a little bit and why he's the Antichrist and how he came to be, so that's going to be all about the evil baby trope. It looks like the film Immaculate might also include some of these tropes. I don't know for sure because the plot details are still under wraps, but just based off of the title, it definitely sounds like it's going to involve this trope. Next up is a trope that I've been talking about for several years now, and that is vampires. I always say I think vampires are going to be really hot this year, and then more often than not, I'm kind of right. Vampires never completely go away. Last year Renfield was really popular, even though that was horror comedy and maybe even a little bit closer to comedy action. It did heavily feature vampires. And then The Last Voyage of the Demeter, which I wasn't a huge fan of, was somewhat popular. I kind of feel like most people were sort of divided on that one, but it was a vampire film. And that was about it in terms of vampires last year. There might be one or two that I overlooked or haven't heard of, but it wasn't super popular. And then the year before that, it also wasn't super popular. And at one point, I think I was basing my theory on Morbius, which is why you can't take these videos too seriously. I was like, I think if Morbius is successful, it's going to start off a crazy vampire trend, and then it was not successful. But in terms of it just exploding with popularity, I don't think that we're there. That didn't happen last year, and I don't foresee that happening this year. Although I will say that last year, Salem's Lot was also supposed to come out, so that was another reason why I was kind of thinking vampires were going to be really hot last year. But Salem's Lot is supposed to come out this year. I don't know a whole lot of details about it. What I have heard is a little bit concerning, especially how they keep pushing the release date back. That has me a little bit concerned as well. So I don't know if that's going to contribute to, you know, making vampires really popular this year or not. And then a remake of Nosferatu is coming out, and I know a lot of people are excited about that. I'm kind of on the fence. Like, I'll just wait and see what other people say in regards to that film. It's not one of my most anticipated films, but I'll definitely keep an open mind. And as for vampire books, I don't know of any that are coming out this year, so we're just gonna have to wait and see. Next up is urban settings. Now this is a trend that we saw a lot of last year, especially in terms of taking a series that has never been in the city and transporting it there. This was especially apparent in the Scream series because they did so much marketing about how it's Scream in New York, and I thought that it was going to be really obnoxious and gimmicky, but it actually was pretty cool. I thought that it was successful. And then of course Evil Dead Rise is usually somewhere secluded or like in a cabin, but in this case they put it in the city, and I thought that was also a really clever decision. So this is a trend that I really like. I thought that it was really successful in both films, having these new settings. You know, Scream utilized a gas station, and it made, you know, what was a slasher going after his victims almost feel like a gas station robbery, except with a knife, and it was really interesting. And also it used the subway, which I thought was really cool. And then Evil Dead Rise took place in an apartment complex, and it felt incredibly claustrophobic, and that was a really cool aspect to that film. So I like urban settings. I hope that they're here to stay. I don't know for sure. There's no film that I looked at this year that's coming out that, you know, is very clearly going to be set in the city or an urban area, but I hope that we see this trend in the future. And like I said, based on the popularity of Scream 6 and Evil Dead Rise, I think that we're going to see this trend come back. Next up is public domain horror, especially in regards to public domain childhood icons being turned into slashers. So back in 2022, we had The Mean One, which was about the Grinch going around murdering people. And then we also had Blood and Honey, which was about a serial killer, Winnie the Pooh. Well, this year, Blood and Honey is getting a sequel. And also, Steamboat Mickey just became public domain, and there's already a film set to come out called Mickey's Mousetrap, which looks super campy, but it also looks like it might be fun, and I'm really looking forward to it. And there are other public domain childhood icon horror movies that are in various stages of pre- or post-production, including Peter Pan, Bambi, and Pinocchio. So I really like this trend. Of all the trends on this list, I think this is the one that I'm most looking forward to seeing more of, just because it's new. You know, like, we've seen lots of vampires, we've seen lots of possession films. This is something that, you know, it's familiar, but it's got a new twist on it. So I think that, you know, if we can get one really, really good public domain horror film, that, you know, that could just be a total game changer. In my opinion, I don't think that we really have a good example of a childhood icon being turned into a horror movie yet, but I do think that the potential is there. And, you know, I think that obviously they're going to keep making these films as much as they can, unless there's some kind of, you know, legal shenanigans that comes up at some point, which I really hope that that doesn't happen. But, you know, they're going to continue to make these films because people are curious, because, you know, what does a murderous Pooh Bear look like? And, you know, but I think at some point we're going to get a high quality version of this, hopefully. And I think that, you know, that'll be really fun when it happens. And in the meantime, it might be campy fun, so hopefully it'll be fun either way. Next up is Trilogys. Now, there's a part of me that hesitates to jump on this and call it a trend, but I think that considering how successful Halloween was, regardless of how you felt about the ending, it did make a lot of money and it got a lot of hype in the horror community. So I think that we're going to see, based off of how successful Halloween was, a continuation of horror trilogies. The new Exorcist series is being planned as a trilogy, although I know that there's been a little bit of things going on behind the scenes in terms of people that were going to be involved or leaving and things like that. So that might not end up coming to fruition, but nonetheless, it was planned as a trilogy. And I think we're going to see more things that are being planned ahead of time as a trilogy going forward. And also the new Strangers trilogy. Like I said, I'm betting that this has something to do with how successful Halloween was. So now, you know, whenever people are pitching to studios, they're not just pitching one film, they're pitching an entire trilogy and trying to make themselves seem like they're going to be the next Halloween. So that's what I foresee continuing. I don't know how I feel about this trend, honestly, because although I do love the idea of planning sequels, because odds are if you create a successful film, they're going to want you to do a sequel anyway. So I like the idea of kind of planning ahead. I just hope that if they do it for a reason. Like, because they actually have a storyline in mind that's going to take 3 movies to accomplish their goals, or 3 movies to tell this story, as opposed to just dragging out one storyline for 3 movies, or worse, just giving us the exact same thing 3 times in a row. So, you know, I feel like it could go either way. Next up is a trend that I want to talk about that I've noticed a lot more in literature than movies, and that is final girls. And not just the trope, but even just including the words final girls in the title. You've got the Final Girl Support Group by Grady Hendrix, you've got Final Girls by Stephen Graham Jones, you've got Final Girls by Riley Sager. It's a lot. And there was another one too that I can't remember the name of the author right now, but I'll probably be putting it in the video. I don't have any strong feelings one way or the other towards this trope. It's just seeing it over and over again that's a little bit tiresome, actually. I have no problem with the final girls trope. In fact, I like it quite a bit. It's just seeing it over and over again. It's one of those things where it's just like, did all of the really popular A-list horror and mystery writers get together and have a retreat with just like one theme? And like, so everybody decided they have to have their take on this one theme. I don't know. I don't know what's going on, but it's just something that I've observed that I wanted to talk about. The last trend I want to talk about is legacy character cameos. This is another trend that I think Halloween started, where Jamie Lee Curtis came back. Obviously, she was the main character to finish off Michael, and it took 3 movies, but she finally did it. And, you know, I think that there are other horror franchises that were trying to capitalize on the idea of bringing the original leading lady back instead of trying to do like a reboot. It's kind of like a soft reboot where you bring back a legacy character and you have a bunch of other new characters. And like I said, Halloween, I feel like at least the first 2 films were quite successful. It's just, you know, these other franchises are trying to copy the success of Halloween, but they don't really get it. Like the new Texas Chainsaw Massacre that came out last year had Sally for like 2 or 3 scenes. You know, made a big deal of bringing her into the story, and you think, oh, she's gonna come in and she's gonna save these 2 girls and she's gonna kick Leatherface's ass. And then she disappears pretty quickly. She does not stand a chance against Leatherface. And then also with the new Exorcist film, Reagan's mom comes in and you think, oh, she's gonna kick this demon's ass. Okay, I didn't actually think that, but I thought, you know, she would somehow have some, you know, massive impact on the plot, and she really doesn't. Like, if you took her scenes out, you wouldn't really be missing much. There's no reason to not give these women bigger roles, especially since they're legacy characters. They're the most interesting part of these new films, and you need to find an interesting way to integrate them into the plot, or, you know, you need to just not do it at all. So that's it. Those are my horror trend predictions for 2024. Are there any that you really like or that you really don't like? And do you have any predictions of your own? Let me know. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like and be sure to subscribe. On this channel, I post reviews, writing advice, horror commentary, and vlogs. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you later.